Happy Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. And Mike, it's our favorite season of all, or least favorite season of all.
Spurrier.
Yeah, the head ball coach.
He came up with that, the talking season.
The talking season.
I like it. It accurately describes what happens in the summer. And the talking is always about football.
It is.
So we get 2 full months, sometimes 3 full months, of people talking about football, even though nothing's going on.
Well, the Olympics are this year, so maybe a little bit of Olympics.
No, they're talking about football, and there's no football going on, which is what causes. That's why he said it was the talking season, because it's all about we're just going to talk.
It is, and that's exactly what we're doing today. We are going to be talking and a lot about football too, Mike. Hot Dogger wants to know what happened to Carius Kern. Is there something going on that we lost a good 4-star player?
Okay, he's the lineman, offensive lineman, defensive lineman, but probably projects as an offensive lineman from Marion, Arkansas. Was committed in February, decommitted, and then just last week committed to LSU. So what's going on? It depends on who you talk to. I think a lot of it has to do, and we'll talk about this as we move on today. I think high school recruiting, the recruiting of high school seniors, is a lot more affected by what you did the previous year than the portal people. Because Arkansas's portal, regardless of where they're ranked in their portal, and I don't care, they got what they needed through the portal, and we've talked about that. Going back to December, where they had a need, they filled that need, and you could see it this past spring, and they continued to go after some portal people after spring was over. I think that you got to totally separate that from high school recruiting. And there's no question it's not been a good year. I mean, they've lost a kid to, Ole Miss. They lost one to Oklahoma.
Yeah, well,
one to
Oklahoma,
Missouri.
Yeah, I think, I don't know about Ole Miss, but definitely Oklahoma, Missouri, and then you go back to last cycle
There's
as well.
a perception that other coaches from other states, schools in other states, are just coming in here and getting whatever they want. And this has been one of the worst years in terms of losing guys at the top. However, if you go back, as long as I've covered this program, you always lose some guys in Arkansas near the top. Maybe not this many, but it always happens. And it's happened to good teams after good years to good coaches. So it doesn't necessarily mean the end is near. What's interesting about this is the way the internet, and I'm not talking about fans, because fans on the internet have been doing what? Ever since the end of last season, what have they been doing? We want Sam Pitman fired. He's going to be gone by Halloween. If I read one more idiot on the internet saying that Patrino is going to be the coach, it's not happening. That's not why he's here. If you were around him, you would know. He came back here to be the offensive coordinator. He did not come back here to become the head coach. He's been there, done that. I used to be sports director at another television station in this market. You couldn't pay me enough to make me do that again. Been there, done that, don't want to do it again. Like what I'm doing now. That's what Patrino is doing. So a lot of what's been said, in my opinion, about what's going on with recruiting, what's going on with this football program, started on the internet with fans who wanted him gone. Then guess what happened? Certain internet websites, media people picked up on it, and what did they say? They went, wow, fans are mad. Hey, we can say this too, it'll make them happy. So you get clicks. Even if it's not true, you don't have to say whether it's true or not. You just say, oh, this looks really bad, this is happening. So that's what happened when this was announced 2 days ago. It was like all these headlines. Every time I'm looking all over these media websites, it's like, Pitman's recruiting has gone to a new low. This could be really bad. Predictions that he will be gone. And then Lindy's sports magazine, which is a rag in my opinion, they're the ones that always interview the anonymous coaches. Remember the anonymous opposing coach says that Sam Pitman will be gone by Halloween. Gee, I wonder where that came from. It started with Arkansas fans. So what, some opposing SEC coach reads that, or somebody tells him about it? One of his little internet people tells him, hey, these Arkansas fans are saying he's going to be gone by Halloween. Okay, I'll say that to Lindy's. So that's the kind of junk that's going on right now. All I'll say about this is that your high school recruiting, your recruiting of high school seniors, you don't lose them until signing day. Guess when signing day is? The first one is mid-December. Then there's one in February. So you haven't lost this guy. Secondly, that all changes if you start winning. So whatever it looks like right now could be totally different from what it looks in December if this team turns out to be better than everybody thinks it's going to be.
I hate to ask you this, Mike.
No, you don't. It's fine.
But we talk about how the team does, and obviously that affects recruiting. But now with NIL, you have to kind of think maybe there's a money thing too. You have to think that too, right?
Honestly, I think it's more to do with high school seniors than even portal guys, because portal guys don't just come for NIL money; they can get it. What a portal guy is, look at what happened to Snacks, the cornerback that had such a great season at Arkansas, and we were all shocked when he left. And then the explanation was, well, he lost his job in the spring; he got beat out. He didn't want to be a backup cornerback. So he went somewhere else thinking he can be a starter. So there are things in the portal which causes somebody to come into the portal and then come to your school that are different from high school. And I think NIL is a big deal with high school guys now. So that may also be a factor. But I think the number one thing that's hurting Arkansas right now in high school recruiting is that 4-win season. And that 4-win season goes away if you start winning games this fall. Now, there are plenty of people say that it can't happen. Just going to talk to a guy today that said he didn't think they would be any better. Okay, maybe. Then if he does, then it continues and it's bad, and then Pitman is gone. But I don't believe that's going to happen.
I think there is a lot to do. I mean, you obviously are correct. How you do is going to affect recruiting always. It always has, it always will. But with NIL, just adds another layer into it that coaches have to deal with. And I go back to what one coach told me. He goes, it's crazy these days, Courtney, because I pick up the phone. I call a recruit or I call a recruit's parents, and the first question they ask me before I even get out a word is, how much NIL money am I going to get?
Yeah, that's
That
a
is
factor.
the first question. So you can't tell me that some of this, and I'm not saying all of this, guys, but some of this, NIL. I'm gonna have to say, because that's what I truly believe. If these coaches are saying that,
But
that's
we'll
what
see.
I believe too.
If this team turns things around, which I think they will, and I'm not saying they'll win 8 or 9 games, but they're not going to win 4. They'll win more than that. Then we'll see if recruiting picks up a little bit.
But to be fair, if they start winning, that's going to positively impact NIL, right? Because fans are going to want to give.
Maybe.
People are going to want to give. Look what hiring Coach Cal did for NIL. Boom, people were like, how can I donate? How can I donate to Arkansas
Isn't it weird,
Edge?
though, that if you as a fan will not give NIL money if you're losing, and yet it's the NIL money that will help you win again. But you're
Wow.
mad, so you won't give it.
Ding, 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 ding. Good job, Mike. That's
It's pretty funny.
It is kind of funny. Maybe fans will hear that one day. Marty Bird's proxy says when Coach Pitman was hired, many of us felt that he would be able to right the ship based mostly on his recruiting ability. Has recruiting changed so much so that NIL overwhelms old-fashioned relationships recruiting, or is the U of A just that hard to recruit to? This goes into that conversation.
There are still examples of guys that are going to come for the traditional reasons. They're not coming here for NIL money. They're coming here because they wanted to come to Arkansas. They may like the coaching staff. They may be in-state and never wanted to go out of state. So it hasn't gone completely away. But again, it's not that that Arkansas is hard to recruit to permanently. This situation is difficult. And it's more difficult, in my opinion, with high school guys. And it could be the NIL thing as a part of it. But we're going to talk about some possible solutions to this NIL thing later on, so I don't want to go into it too much. But I do think the buying of players through NILs is going away because there are too many coaches that realize you will ruin this sport if you turn it into a thing where the same 3 or 4 wealthy mega bucks donor schools are always winning because they have more money than everybody else. The NFL doesn't operate that way. College will ruin its product if they don't do something, and I think they're going to do something.
You have a bunch of coaches that are echoing that same sentiment all over the country right now, that are banding together to try and figure out what they can do. I know especially that's the case for basketball, but I know football as well. And so they're all feeling the same things.
I mean, even Calipari has said he wants curbs. He said this in an interview with Dan Patrick a couple of days ago. He said, I want guardrails. I don't want this to stay the way it is. We need guardrails. We need some stuff here that makes some sense out of this stuff.
Yeah, because otherwise, if you just let it go, you're just opening up a Pandora's box, so to speak, right? And you're just not, you have so many things going on right now that are not good and are ruining the sport. But we're going to get into NIL. We do have a question about it this week. So we're going to put a pin in that. We're going to talk about it in just a second. But David Porter says, so much negativity about Pitman. I need something positive. I need the Kool Aid, and I'll slurp it up until the season starts. Why will they win, Mike?
Okay, we're going to give him some Kool Aid to slurp. I'm the perfect Kool Aid guy today because, and I don't do this all the time.
No.
I'm doing it now because of this situation, because I paid attention. If you will recall, at the end of last season, I said Pitman might want to consider retiring. He'd always said that if he reached a point where it wasn't fun anymore and he wasn't getting it done, he would just go down to Hot Springs and sit out by his statue of the hog and wave at people as they drove by in their boats. And I said, well, this may be that time, because it had really gotten bad. The overall attitude on the team among players, we've talked to so many people that know players on that team last year, it was a mess. There was no unity there. People were mad at each other. That's why it fell apart at the end. We had all those close games where they were losing close games, but then all of a sudden they just let go. Everybody just let go at once at the end of the year. So I was thinking, man, this is his fault. But when you think about it, and somebody told me this, and he's right about this, up until last year, Arkansas had been bowl eligible every year. The only time they didn't go to a bowl was the 2000 COVID thing, and they were eligible, and they were on the bus on the way to TCU, and TCU went, we can't play, we have COVID. They knew they were going to get beat, so they just COVID'd it out. But Arkansas was in a bowl game that year. This would have been, last year was the first year he wasn't in. What coach is at a school for 5 years and 1 year he doesn't go to a bowl and he's fired? That doesn't happen. So it was unrealistic to expect Hunter Yurachek to go, yep, you're gone, Pitman. It wasn't going to happen, even if it made a lot of fans mad. But what I paid attention to from that point on, okay, he's here. Now let's see what he does to solve the problem. What did he do? Right off the bat, he hired Patrino. I never thought he could pull that off. I'd heard rumors. I sat up until, remember that? I was saying he wasn't coming, and then he was, and I looked like a bozo.
Well, to be fair, it's because we had so many different people within the athletic department telling us, well, here's all the stipulations.
He can't be, and what we didn't realize at the time was they had figured out that he could be hired because he was being hired as an assistant coach, not as a head coach. Therefore, as an assistant coach, he never hires anybody else.
Right, but they still had to sign off on it. There were people that still had to say that was okay.
But when it happened, I just went, wow, that's the number one thing. That is a game changer. You go from Dan Enos, who we now know the players even last spring didn't like what was going on, or the previous spring didn't like the offense. They were mad about it. And now you replace it with a guy that players. And then what do we get with this Patrino? Because I'm watching. Every day when we go over there, this isn't the same Bobby Patrino I remember, the one that was just going nutso every day, screaming and cussing at players. We saw it happen. This was a guy that was more of a teacher. And I finally began to realize this guy is doing what he likes to do. He became a head coach because that's what you're supposed to do. Everybody tells you got to be the head coach. You got to be so he becomes the head coach, but he doesn't really like it. It's not as much fun. He's going back to something that was fun. That's what I've done. Years ago, all I was a reporter and an analyst. Then I became the sports director. Get to make all the decisions and boss people around. Yuck, wasn't fun. So now you're back doing what you like. Well, Patrino is back, and he's teaching. He talked about that in a press conference with us. He's teaching these kids. And he was instructing, he was out there, he was working with them. That's a world of difference. And they're looking at this guy and they're going, wow, this is our offensive coordinator. So you start with that. Then you look at, what did they do through the portal? Oh, whoop, they brought in this quarterback who happens to be 6'6". He's another Matt Jones. He can run like the wind, and he, like Matt Jones, can throw it pretty good. He just needs to be developed as a passer. Who better to develop you as a passer than Bobby Patrino? Then they had a problem with wide receivers. What happened last year? They were never open, were they? You know who gets receivers open? Went back and looked at the year he was at Missouri State, at that Missouri State game.
Yeah.
All we ever saw was receivers wide open. I'm going, what is this? At the time, we were criticizing Arkansas secondary, but this guy knows how to get people open. But he also needs speed. And guess what? They've gone out and got speed. They've gotten speed from places we didn't even think about. They just ended up with a quarterback. A guy was a quarterback down in Texas. He wasn't that good as a quarterback, but he was being recruited as a quarterback, and he ended up committing to Army. And I don't know how this happened, but at Arkansas, they figured out, this guy's pretty fast. Let's see if he can catch passes. Went down, had him work out for them, satisfied themselves that he was not only can catch passes, he's a good receiver. And they said, how would you like to come to Arkansas as a receiver? And in May, that late, he decommitted, and now he's going to be here this fall. And by the way, he's a 20.2 or 20.3 200-meter guy. Ooh. You know how fast that's a track speed. And he's going to be here. They just continue to be adding these guys because guess what? Patrino is not just messing around. You may not think it's any big deal. You may be one of these hate Pitman guys that think nothing can be good, but I'm looking at this and comparing what's going on now to what was going on a year ago. Now let's look at the offensive line. They brought in 4 guys from other schools that were all high in the portal, all experienced, and brought them in here and put them in the various spots that they need them. And then I talked about going over and watching these guys, and they had one drill in particular. It was a pass rush / pass blocking drill. You took your best pass rushers, you took your best blockers, you lined them up opposing, you stuck a grad assistant with a football, could not move out of the pocket. He wasn't moving, he just stood in the pocket. And then you just, when you snap the ball, you see how long can they hold the pocket and keep them from getting to the guy. I'm counting, 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, 1,004, they got him. That's 4 seconds to get rid of the ball. That's enough time. I saw that over and over again. The only thing I don't like about last spring, we didn't do any ones versus ones in the spring game. Yeah. So we didn't ever see that offense, and we saw some of it in scrimmages where the offense didn't look as good. But I also saw that they developed, that they got better. Now, I can't sit here and tell you that Taylon Green is going to set the world on fire and these receivers are always going to be open. And by the way, they went and got one of the best running backs in the portal that you could get. I think he was ranked number 5 in the portal. And replaced a guy you had that was injured all year long. You think that's not going to be a good trade? One injured guy versus somebody that's healthy. Then they've got a freshman that came in that astounded everybody, a big burly guy that's fast and runs over people. So you're good. You look good with your running game. You look good with your passing game. And then over on the defensive side, the only area I have concerns about is at linebacker. But everywhere else, it looks like they made the right portal adjustments. But what I keep being told is the defense will be fine. What happened to them is they just got tired of having to keep the team going every week. Your offense is doing nothing. You're trying to keep the game close. That's not happening anymore, and they are more motivated. So when this is the Kool Aid I'm giving you. Okay. But it's Kool Aid based on common sense. Yeah. If everywhere you look, a situation last year is better better now than it was last year, and you won 4 games last year, you're going to win 4 games again? No, it just doesn't make any sense. The only thing that will change this is injuries. If they get key injuries, then it could change because they still don't have the depth that they need. That's always been most of the time the difference between Arkansas and some other programs that are more established is Arkansas does not traditionally recruit well enough to have the kind of depth that, say, an Alabama has or a Georgia has.
Absolutely. I like what you said before, especially, and we've talked about it on the show before, of people comparing this year's team to last year's team with the attitudes, because we have seen the attitudes change of this team, and we know there was issues last year. We know that. We've talked about it before with KJ Jefferson and the offensive line and those things, but the relationships that these guys are building together, and they're kind of, I've point blank talked to some of the players who have said, if you think it's the same, you are totally
don't know what
wrong.
you're
You don't know what
talking
you're
about.
talking about, because it is not the same. Last year, we all agree, wasn't great. It was not good between us on the team. Like you said about the defense, feeling like they had to just pick up the offense every single week. They got tired. The offense felt tired of just having one guy go around and flash, look at me, look at me. Oh, well, no one cares about us, right? No one cares about the offensive line. They just tell us that we suck every week, right? That was the attitude. And so when you have bad attitudes, right, that affects a lot of what you put on the field.
And let me go back to recruiting, because I want to make this point to people, and I'm talking about somebody that's undecided. They haven't decided this team stinks, this coach stinks, has to be fired. They're open-minded. They just want to know what's going on. And I want to talk about Carius Kern because, okay, he decommits and commits to LSU. Now, guess what happened the next day? How much splash did this make? Antonio Jordan, Warren,
Yep,
6'6", 230-pound receiver, commits. And I went on the internet and watched the reaction of these people to this. Oh, he's the number 43 wide receiver in the country. We're not beating anybody with that guy. Some more hit and miss by Sam Pitman. I guess they forgot about Traylon Burks, Jarius Wright, Greg Childs, because all of those guys came from Warren. Bo Hembry, the head coach, has a knack for cranking out wide receivers that go to Arkansas, and you know what they do? They win games. Now, I can't swear that this guy will do it. I haven't seen him play, but I can't wait to see him after this next year. He's in the 2025 class. Because if he does what those other guys do, and guess what those other guys, what they have in common with him? They were coached by Bobby Patrino.
There you
and
go.
Antonio Jordan is going to be coached by Bobby Patrino, who knows a thing or two about receivers. So you got people talking about what a loser this guy is, and they're totally unaware of any of this other stuff, and they don't care because they just want to make the point that the coach needs to be fired, and this is a good example of why. When I asked Otis about this guy, he said, you know why he's a 3-star? Because he didn't go to any camps. He didn't take official visits to other schools. This is how you become a 4-star or a 5-star. You go all over the place. You get
Showcase yourself,
you showcase yourself. You let other schools see you. Other coaches see you. You let the media in larger markets see you.
And it also helps to go to those camps at the recruiting.
Yeah, because they're all
places.
there.
Yeah, rivals camp.
Let me
24/7 camp.
let me mention a guy, Darren McFadden. Do you know that he was a 4-star when he was a senior? He was a 4-star.
Wow.
Okay. I knew he was good, 4-star. I went to see him one time in a playoff game at Alma. Halfway through that game, and the field was wet, they'd watered it on purpose. They wanted to neutralize him and all this stuff because every time he was trying to cut, the field, he'd slip out from under him. So he hadn't done a lot. But they gave him the ball on a straight handoff just on his side of midfield. And I lost him. He was so fast, he was just gone. I turned around, and there he was in the end zone. I'd never seen a kid that fast in my life. And I said to myself, 4-star? That's the most amazing speed I've ever seen. And then that's what we saw when he got to Arkansas. What people didn't know that year, he wasn't a 4-star. He was the number 1 high school running back in the country. People just didn't know it because he didn't go to camps. He didn't go to other schools and go on recruiting visits. He was going to be a Razorback. It was Darren McFadden. He was runner-up for the Heisman for 2 straight years, and I picture now if he came along today and some guy going, oh, he's just a 4-star.
He's just a 4-star. He's not going to do anything for
Arkansas. Come on, we got to get a 5-star.
Oh my gosh. And a lot of that, we've said this before, is subjective. A lot of it is subjective
Absolutely,
as well. So
is.
you can look on one recruiting place and they'll be listed as a 4-star, another as a 3-star. I mean,
And here's
it's all over
one
the
more
place.
bit of Kool Aid, and then I'll quit.
Okay, all right, one more piece, and then we're moving on, I promise.
You know what Paul Feinbob said last week that had everybody going, woo? What did he say?
Oh, what did
He
Paul
was
say?
talking about Ole Miss, and he said, there's been so much said about what Ole Miss is going to do this year. If they don't get into the national championship playoffs, their season is a total failure. You know what Nick Saban calls that? Rat poison. Because every day when you're an Ole Miss Rebel, you get up and hear about how good you're going to be. Now you got to wait because it's not next fall yet. And this has been going on, but everybody's telling you how good you are, and you're telling yourself how good you are, and your teammates are talking about how good you are, and everything's good, and nobody's saying anything but you're good. Nick Saban calls that rat poison.
Yeah.
What is the opposite of that? Wheaties.
Wheaties.
You know what Wheaties are? You get up every morning and you look on the internet and people talk about your coach is going to be fired by Halloween because you stink.
And y'all are going to only win 4 games
You're
this
going to
year.
win 4 games, and it doesn't matter who was brought in. It doesn't matter who's here because it doesn't matter about Patrino until Patrino becomes the coach. That's what you read.
So you're just eating
And
it?
those guys have been reading that stuff for months, and it ticks them off, and they can't wait to prove those people wrong. That's Wheaties as opposed to rat poison.
I like it. I like calling it Wheaties instead of bulletin board material. I like it. You're eating it for breakfast. I love that. WV Hog Fan says recently the NCAA agreed to pay $2.8 billion to settle NIL lawsuits. After that agreement, the 1983 NC State basketball team filed an NIL lawsuit against the NCAA. When will these lawsuits come to an end? If the NCAA continues to lose these lawsuits, what will be the end results?
Well, this is still a little bit confusing when you read what the proposal is, but paying that money back to previous athletes apparently did a lot to satisfy the legal people that are making these decisions. Let's go back to the NCAA trying to enforce its NIL recruiting rule, the rule that you couldn't offer NIL money directly to high school guys. You had to wait till they got on campus. The courts blew that up because Tennessee and others filed a lawsuit saying you can't do that. It's not fair. And then the courts went, yeah, right now we're going to put an injunction on that. So that's how we ended up with the Wild West right now, where you can just offer what you want, okay? That's how that came about. So now what's happening is leaders in college football, ADs, people at the NCAA, a lot of them have gotten together and talked to legal scholars about how do we solve this problem. And what they were told was, if you start being fair to these athletes, you've been taking advantage of them. Let's go back to early 2000s when these TV contracts started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you were making more and more money, and your athletic budget grew from $35 million a year to 60 to 70 to 80. Athletes didn't get any of that. They just got their same scholarship. But your head coaches were getting $8, $9, $10 million a year. And the assistants went from making $100,000 to $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. Coordinators are getting almost $1 million. You know, everybody's money was going up. Then you were building gigantic facilities and replacing facilities that were only a few years old. They were spending money on everything but the athletes. And that's what got them in trouble. So now the proposal is, let's get around NIL. Let's go back to this idea that a school like Arkansas could take a percentage of its budget, let's say 20%, and give it directly to the athletes in terms of part of their scholarship. This is not NIL. This goes to every scholarship athlete. And if you gave them $20,000 or $30,000 a year in addition to everything else, well, it's like a part-time job. It's a good paying part-time job, but why is that important? Well, let's say you come from a family where your family is dirt poor. You don't have a car, you don't have anything. You get on campus, you got to walk wherever you want to unless some of your buddies take you somewhere. You got your room and board, that's taken care of, but you don't have any spending money. You don't have any money to do anything unless your teammates that have parents that are better off and are giving them money, they can help you out. Well, now that's not necessary under this because you have your own money. You could make a car payment. You could save up, put money down on a car. This isn't somebody giving you a car. This is you taking that money putting on a down payment and then making car payments with the $30,000 a year or so you're getting while you're in college. So you're being fair to athletes. You're letting them share in all of this. Then what you can do when you're doing that is you can go back to enforcing your original NIL rules. You can say, look, we're still going to allow NIL money, but not in the recruiting process. You have to wait till a kid gets on campus. You can't go out and openly bid for players. So you get back into the NFL formula, which is you can't bid for players in the NFL. You have a draft. Well, you're not going to have a draft in college, but if you eliminate, hey, we'll give you $8 million. No, we'll give you $6 million. Well, oh, they're giving me $6 million. We'll give you $9 million. You get away from that. You just know that when you get there, you're going to get $30,000, $35,000 a year, and then they will offer you some sort of they will tell you of an agent you can get that will then work to see if you get an NIL. If they do all of that, I'm told that the lawsuits will fail, that these people that continue to file these lawsuits may still continue because they want more and more and more, got to have more.
Yeah.
At that point, the courts realize if they don't stop this, they're going to ruin college sports. So they've said, you've solved a problem, you're being fair to the athletes now, we're not going to rule favorably in favor of these lawsuits anymore. That's what the hope is. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. But it's the idea that you've been unfair to athletes. If you show you're now changed and you're going to be fair, then we'll be fair to you.
And I think as well, that also solves the problem. A lot of people go, well, what about women's sports? What about women's sports? Are they going to make the same money as men? If you give everybody, let's say, every scholarship athlete on campus, your track athlete, your volleyball player, your football player, are making $20,000, $30,000.
They have to do that.
Right. Where then you're saying, here's the amount of money that you get for being a student athlete at the University of Arkansas. And then also, I think where the lawsuits would get a little, okay, maybe you would get a lawsuit to win, is if you took away NIL completely. You're not taking away NIL. Like you said, hey, you can get an agent and make your own deals, but make sure that
what
you are
you're taking
profiting.
away is using it to recruit.
Absolutely.
Walking up to some high school senior and saying, hey, we'll give you $4 million if you'll come to our school. You're taking that away. And if you get caught doing it, you're going to get nailed.
That's the hope, right? That's the hope, because you don't want anybody
Because
going against those rules.
Under those circumstances, the courts would not step in and put an injunction saying you can't enforce your own rules, which is what we've got right now.
Absolutely. We have more to talk about with NIL because Eddie Lynn says, I'm hearing that a new NIL-related issue is creeping into recruiting. High school coaches getting money to deliver players to a certain school or schools. Is this a rumor or is it starting to happen?
Well, I'm gonna say it's a rumor until the NCAA cracks down on it. I don't know that it's happened. I think it would take the NCAA stepping in and saying, you school X, we now have proof that you offered money, or that this high school coach said, you give me X amount of money and I will deliver this player to you, and then you take care of him too. Those are two separate issues. Again, the courts are going to be sympathetic toward offering money to a player. They're not going to be sympathetic to a high school coach who's using his player to feather his own nest. And I think right now, if that's happened, the NCAA would step in and say, there was a case years ago, the Albert Means case. It happened at Alabama during the early 2000s. Saban wasn't there yet. And there was this kid, Albert Means, I think it was in Memphis, but they later determined that his high school coach was out asking schools that would come in to recruit him for money. How much money will you give me? And Arkansas got involved in that because Danny Nutt, Houston Nutt's brother, was called to testify in the trial. And he got up there and said that he was told, if we want Albert Means, leave $150,000 or something, leave $150,000 in a bag on Mud Island at 10 o'clock at night, and we'll go down and collect it.
Deal.
Yeah, and it sounded very wacky to me. But anyway, I mean, that was Danny Nutt's way of saying we weren't going to do this, but they were out. This guy was saying, if you want my kid, you have to pay for this. Yeah. So what ended up happening was the coach got fired, I believe. It's been a long time ago, and the NCAA put Alabama on probation, I think, for 3 years. So if they can do it then, I think they can still do it now. Now, is this actually going on? There's no evidence that I can see that it's happened. But if it does happen, the coach that's doing it is making a mistake.
Absolutely.
Because the courts will not protect you the way they would an athlete.
Oh, absolutely not. Why do they care about high school coaches? They care about the athletes. That's what started this whole thing. They don't care about the high school coaches.
Well, especially if what you're doing is basically taking a bribe to deliver a guy to a school. Maybe he didn't even want to go to that school, and you're going to use your influence to tell him to go there?
But I would say the courts, they would go, well, that's negatively affects the student athlete.
Exactly.
I would think they would side with the student athlete there.
If you're out there and you're thinking of doing that, don't. You're going to get caught.
We are warning you now. You will get caught. There you go. Broomba wants to know, what will it take for the baseball team to not only get out of regionals, but win the national championship? Is DVH the answer? Are there other problems on the staff? Or players not finishing the job after starting off strong?
Well, what essentially they're asking is whether or not I think Arkansas is going to win a national championship under Dave Van Horn. I don't have a clue. That is so hard to do. We know how hard it is. They came within one drop foul ball of winning it. I mean, I'm sitting there watching, and as we're sitting here now, the Tennessee, the championship game, deciding game of the College World Series, has not been played. It'll be played later tonight. Yeah. But I'm sitting there watching game 2, and up until the 7th inning, I'm thinking Tennessee's dead in the water. This doesn't make any sense. Things can happen. You can be the best team. I'm telling you right now, the best Razorback baseball team ever was the 2001 team. They were number 1 from the second week of the season all the way up until they got eliminated in their super regional. They won the SEC, they won the SEC tournament, they won their regional, and then all of a sudden things went wrong in game 2 and 3. They won that game 1 like 20-2 or something like it. It was crazy. We thought they're rolling, man, this team's gonna win that, and then they didn't. Stuff can happen. As far as there's something with the staff, you know what the story has always been. You've got this guy, Nate Thompson. He wants his guys to hit home runs, and they strike out instead. Look, here's the issue with that. It's not the philosophy that's bad. You got to get those players. If you want to hit home runs, you better get players that can hit home runs. And this past year, they didn't do it. Tennessee is doing it. I still think that's a way to win. I mean, Dave Van Horn has said he's going to, in his recruiting, and he's done that so far through the portal, he's going after guys that hit doubles and singles and guys that can run the bases, speed guys. So he's going in that direction, which the fans seem to want. But you know who plays that way? Kentucky. Where is Kentucky?
Not in
They're
the national
gone.
championship.
They didn't win the national championship. So we can sit here and debate this philosophy, Nate Thompson, this guy, we got to go do this, what. There is no one way to do it. Winning a national championship is difficult. A&M won, are you aware of this? A&M won 9 straight NCAA games until they got beat.
I saw that.
9 straight. Tennessee didn't do that. They lost one, then came back. They lost another and came back. And now they've lost another one. We'll see if they can come back. But 9 straight. And they still may not win it. It's hard. It's difficult. It doesn't make Dave Van Horn a loser because he hasn't won one. I mean, what did we talk about with Florida State?
I was just going to bring that up. Sorry, Alyssa. She's in the room. Sorry, Alyssa.
It was 22. Now it's 23 years of being there, 23 appearances that they don't win. And that doesn't mean they're not any good. It just means stuff has happened. And so when you sit here and say, well, what do we have to do to win a national championship? I don't know. Certain things have to happen that haven't happened. That's it, you know. Maybe you don't drop the foul ball when you haven't dropped one
Maybe you don't do that. Maybe you go back and change history. But
exactly.
I mean, it's funny because I see all these people on social media and talking about the Florida State thing. I see all these people on social media going, is Dave Van Horn another Mike Martin? Is Dave Van Horn another Mike? And I'm going,
what is Mike Martin? He's one of the greatest college
baseball coaches of all time. I think I would be very happy.
Do you think Florida State would go back and trade him and get rid of him?
No. If you ask any fan, they're in the comments going, "Are you guys nuts? Are you guys nuts? We would never give up Mike Martin. We wouldn't. We wouldn't do it." I mean, ask Alyssa. Would you give up Mike Martin, Alyssa?
No.
No, it's an insane concept, people. It's insane. So the fact of the matter is, you're right. You don't know. But Dave Van Horn is sure as heck going to try and figure out how to do it.
And if you ask me if he can win one, I don't know.
There you go. That's it. We're putting a pin in that. The bionic pin says, settle an argument here. And I like this, Mike.
This is tough.
This is so
This
tough.
This guy sat back and did some thinking on this.
Yeah, but he said it's settle an argument. I want to know who he's having this argument
I don't
with
know.
because I don't know. And I don't know. I'm just going to say, I'm going to let you tell us your answer here. But the 1998 Razorbacks featuring Clint Sterner, Madre Hill, Brandon Burlsworth, Anthony Lucas, Joe Dean Davenport, or do you take the 2010 Razorbacks featuring Ryan Mallett, Joe Adams, Niall Davis, Jarius Wright, Greg Childs? Oh, Alyssa says that team. Okay. Which 85 scholarship roster wins?
First of all, it is amazing when you start thinking about it, how similar those two teams were. Both of them lost to the national champion that year. A national champion out of the SEC. Tennessee, the 98 guys lost to Tennessee, and it was close. We know it took the Sternover to make it happen.
Oh.
And the 2010 guys lost to Auburn.
Yeah.
They also lost a bowl game to a really good opponent. The 98 team lost to Michigan, and guess who their quarterback was? Oh, the best quarterback of all time,
A goat, Tom Brady, man.
And then Arkansas in 2010 loses to Ohio State, who shouldn't have been in there in the first. They should have had 5 or 6 guys booted out of there because they were cheating, and ESPN wouldn't let them do it. And they still almost won the game. So it's really close. They're so similar.
So who do you pick?
I'm going to go with the Ryan Mallett guys simply because Mallett was just a little bit better quarterback than Clint Sterner.
Okay, just a little bit better. Put you over the edge.
He was taller and he had a better arm.
Okay, all right. Alyssa says 2010 too. I think I have to agree with you guys. Razor Alex 88 says Monday is my birthday. Happy birthday, Razor Alex 88. Shout out to you there. Have you had any Razorback memories on your birthdays? I would say my closest one was when Arkansas eliminated Florida to go to the 2018 College World Series Final on June 22nd. Of course, we all know how the final series went. Deep sigh.
Okay, it's pretty hard for me to have a Razorback memory because my birthday is in the middle of July and they're not playing anything in July.
Happy early birthday, Mike.
But I still have one.
Okay.
And it's not that long ago, 2022. We're at SEC Media Days. You were there.
I was there, yes.
So we're in, let me describe this hotel. It's in Hoover, and they've got a big mall there, and it's attached to this big multi-story hotel, and everybody stays at the hotel. But what you have is the second floor is a kind of a convention center type thing.
Right.
And they got all these rooms on one side and all these rooms on the other side, and then they got this big open area in the middle. And so you've got the sports writers in a room with the coach. You got the internet people in another little room with a player. And then you got the TV people over here with the player. And then you got ESPN back here and CBS, all these little rooms where coaches and players are going from room to room to room. Well, out in the middle, when you're doing your work as a reporter, you go out there and you have to do it. And you can either go live out there, which some do, or you can do what's called a looks live, which is you're reporting, and you're inside a building, so nobody knows whether it's 6 o'clock at night or not.
And it looks live.
And you don't say you're live, so you're really not lying. And so a lot of people do looks lives. So we're out there trying to do this, and there's 5 or 6 different TV stations out there. There's this one guy over in the corner, and every time he starts he's talking really loud like this. And you're like, what are you doing? And it's disrupting everybody. Every time he did one of these, everybody else just had to stop, because if you didn't, all anybody would hear on your report is him. And what was he saying? He kept saying things like, all the experts agree that Texas A&M is the odds-on favorite to win the SEC and possibly a national championship. And I just heard that over and over again, and I'm thinking, first of all, who are these experts?
Yeah.
And A&M might be good, I don't know, but they're not that good. And so weeks go by and weeks go by, and all of a sudden, one day it's all over, and guess where A&M is?
The bottom.
Dead last.
Bottom.
Not in the West. They are dead last in the entire SEC, tied with two other teams, Auburn and Vanderbilt, at the bottom. So they not only didn't win the conference and go on and play for a national championship, they didn't do anything. They were just last.
The
I wish I
Aggies
could have found this
right?
guy and go, hey, buddy, what happened?
I wonder if he's still working because I didn't.
Oh,
when we
it
went
doesn't
last
matter
year,
to Aggies. They're used to that. They don't care. That's what they do. They promote their own product.
But I wonder, I didn't see him last year. That's what I'm saying. So I don't know if this guy is still around. But
maybe somebody went, that was a little much.
Yeah. I don't have any good Razorback memories on my birthday. I don't have any. I keep going back. So my birthday is in February. So basketball season. So if someone has a cool game that they remember on February 11th, that is my birthday.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I don't know. I kept trying to think. I'm like, is there any? But the first year I was here in Arkansas, I celebrated my birthday by going to the Mississippi State game with Arkansas, and they lost.
Ooh, that's not a good one.
It was not good. It was not a great birthday.
You were a jinx.
I know, and that's what they kept calling me. They're like, we need a win for Courtney's birthday, and they didn't get one. And
we may have stopped. You may not.
Good.
We may have to tell you can't go to games when Cal's.
Listen, I'm worried. Especially on my birthday. But good news is my birthday is a Monday or Tuesday this
Okay,
week. So
they
maybe
won't
there's
play.
no game on there on a Monday or Tuesday. But the past year, my birthday was on the Super Bowl Sunday, and so if Dre Greenlaw and Brandon Allen were going to win it, that would have been a cool memory.
Yeah,
but,
that would be.
They didn't. So,
Okay.
So see, I don't have any cool memories. I just have sad ones.
I just have the goofy Aggie guy that thought they were going to win a national championship and they finished tied.
I think yours
they didn't
beats
finish
all of
14th.
mine.
Technically, that's 12th. You finished 12th, or maybe is it 11th? No, 12th, right?
If
12,
you're tied
13,
for, yeah,
14.
12, 13, 14.
There's three
yeah.
of them, so it's 12, 13, 14, and you're all together, so they finished 12th.
Oh
out
my
of four.
gosh,
It's
that's still
pretty
bad. Still bad. I love that story, Mike. We're gonna find that guy. And the final question. I know you want to ask this. So it's Mousetown.
Oh, Mousetown. See, he's last.
We ended with him this time. See,
Okay.
so don't get mad at us, y'all. But this is a funny question, so we had to put it in. Why do you think so many fans are down on the Aggies? It's almost like it's the Aggies versus everybody else. Nobody likes them but Aggies. And I have seen this, Mike. It's going crazy on the internet right now. People posting their yell leaders and the bubbles.
Yeah,
and saying,
it's
Tennessee,
just,
you've got to beat them.
Yeah, it starts with all that stuff they do. I mean, and the bubbles thing is new. It's not a long tradition.
It isn't. I asked an Aggie fan about it. I was kind of polling Aggie fans to see how they felt about it, and the older Aggie fans were like, yeah, we don't really like it. It's kind of weird.
So why don't they do what normal fans do and some weirdo comes up and says, hey, I'm going to blow bubbles at a baseball game. And they go, no, that's not one of our traditions. Go away. You can't do that.
I don't know.
See, why don't they? Because like bubbles at a bubbles would be like they got these little devices that blow in and bubbles come out. That's like something you do at a 6-year-old's birthday party, right?
That's what I was thinking. It's
Not like
kinda
and I saw somebody doing it in Omaha. It was embarrassing. A lady was sitting there in Omaha blowing bubbles, and I'm thinking, what does everybody around her think? And then there's that thing is new too, that abracadabra where they're trying to do the thing.
What are they? Is it like a hex?
Yeah, they're
What
trying
is
to
it?
put
Like
a hex on the pitcher, like you're going to throw a ball, and walk somebody. And then they go ball five, and start all that stuff. So that's kind of weird. Now look, somebody has said in response to some of this a few weeks ago, look, everybody has their traditions, and you should just let them have their traditions. And I agree. Look, what about the gator chomp? I think it's fine. Is there anything wrong?
Well, that's a tomahawk chop. You were talking
Well,
are
okay,
you doing this?
Okay, the tomahawk chomp, which is similar to the gator chomp. That's okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, not the chomp. The chomp
Yeah,
is
no,
this.
you got the chomp, and then you got the chop.
Chop, yeah.
And so I don't think there's anything particularly annoying about that. They don't do a lot of other stuff like that. That's kind of their thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Woo Pig Suey is that way.
Right.
It's weird, but they don't do Woo Pig Suey and 14 other things.
Yeah, and cowbells at Mississippi State. Some people think that's weird, but it's their thing.
But with the Aggies, it's all these things, these different things they do, and the 12th man and all. But then the worst, the absolute worst. Who came up with the choreography for the yell leaders? What they do? Because I've never seen anything like this. They're doing this weird stuff, and they put their foot behind their knee and then move around and stuff like that. Arkansas had, Mike Nell's wife she was the, I don't know what her official title was. She choreographed all the the dancing Razorbacks,
awesome.
they call it.
Yeah.
And they did these great halftime shows, Christmas specials and things like that. And the choreography of what they were doing was different every time, but it was good. And it was something you'd see like if you went to a Broadway play or you went or a musical. It was good. This stuff is like it was choreographed by a wacko. Like, who dreamed this up?
No.
I mean, and when you see it, they show it periodically, and they're in a room with some other people, or they're out on their midnight yell night, whatever that thing's called, that midnight yell practice, or they're just at different places and they're doing this stuff, and I'm going, what is that? It's nuts. I think we need to get video. You need to find video and run this while we're talking.
All right, maybe I'll superimpose video of the Aggies dancing or their Aggie yell leaders dancing, because it is weird. I mean, everybody on the internet is like, it is weird.
So it's all of these things. Now with me, it's different because it goes beyond all of that. I'm talking about a 10, 12, 13-year-old kid first going to his first college football games in Lubbock. And here's the problem there. It's not Aggie fans from College Station or Southeast Texas. It's local Aggie fans versus local Texas Tech fans, because there's farmers everywhere out there. And the wealthy farmers send their kids to A&M because it's a better agriculture school. And the Texas Tech's got a good agriculture school. It's just not as highly rated as A&M. So they can't afford it, and their kids go to Lubbock. And so those people come together in Jones Stadium, and they know each other. They're neighbors, they're neighboring farmers, and they hate each other. And they hate each other like you would not believe. They have fights. They get mad after. It's amazing. And it spread to the student section. And in the last few years before A&M went to the SEC, it got really bad. It was just local people mad at local people, A&M versus Texas Tech. It would almost be like if we had Razorback fans here, but then we had people around here that also liked the University of Texas because their kids were going, and around here they don't do that much. But if they were all showing up as Longhorn fans, but they were local, it's bad enough. People get mad at Longhorn fans being here anyway. But if they were local, can you see how much more angry you would be? So that's how far that back goes with me. I've just seen this happen.
Yeah.
They just wanted to beat Aggies senseless because it was because local A&M fans was like, you can't live here and be an Aggie fan. Get out of here, move.
And so you saw that growing up, so it's just deep-seated in you. And
then I also had an uncle that became an Aggie. I've said this before, he was younger than me because my grandfather had 3 wives, and his mother was the youngest of the 3. So I ended up being older than him, but he was my uncle, and he was a very strange guy. I saw him recently when I went back to my aunt's funeral, and he showed up there, and we're not, he's not weird anymore. He's old like I am.
I'm glad he's not weird anymore.
But he was talking. He was one of the guys at Monsanto that came up with, what's that chemical that everybody says causes cancer, that thing?
Like what? For what? Like
DEET? Spray grass and kills weeds.
Right? No, or
it's a
not.
spray, it kills weeds.
Pesticide? Yeah, it's a pesticide or something?
It's some kind of a thing that supposedly kills weeds, and you spray it and it kills all. Anyway, he helped develop that because he was working for Monsanto, and he was mad. And he was going, that stuff does not cause cancer. Does not cause cancer. I'm going, okay, I use it. I'm okay with it.
That's great, Mike. You always have the best stories on the show. We're running out of time, though, so that's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike. We'll see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.